On today's show, I'll tell you 3 big changes to how the Sacramento Kings will play this season. 1 is the team as a whole. 2 are player specific. It's all right here for you on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. Was back inside the Sacramento Kings practice facility directly attached to the Golden One Center, where Wednesday, yes, this Wednesday, in just 2 days, the Sacramento Kings will open up their preseason. They will play a game inside the G1C, and they will take on the team that they eliminated from the in-season tournament last season. They eliminated from the play-in tournament last season. That's the Golden State Warriors. So we're all very excited here to have some semblance of Sacramento Kings basketball back. But in the meantime, the Kings are using every opportunity that they can over the next couple of days to kind of put a bow on training camp. It's weird. This is around the time where training camp and preseason kind of start to blend together, and I separate the two. So to me, tomorrow, Tuesday, will be the final day of training camp, with preseason officially beginning Wednesday. And then for the rest of preseason, the practices and things like that are all kind of intertwined into what preseason is, and training camp itself is kind of left behind. But today was day 6 of training camp for the Sacramento Kings inside of the Kings practice facility, and we didn't get to see anything. By the time they let us in, almost all the players were off the floor. A few things that I did observe outside of the main stuff that we're going to talk about, the 3 changes or 3 new elements of how the Sacramento Kings want to play this year. One of the players that was sticking around was Trey Lyles. We saw Trey Lyles. He was wearing a red jersey, which typically symbolizes that he's like on the outskirts. We know Trey Lyles is dealing with his injury right now. So he was out there on the floor, and he was going through a walkthrough of what I assume was the Sacramento Kings offense, because it looked like they were working him in the high and low post and things like that. He was doing a walkthrough with a number of Sacramento Kings assistant coaches. So it's good to see Trey, while he's not physically able to compete in the 5-on-5 stuff and the training in that element of training camp. With his injury, he's still being able to get out there and get walkthroughs. And I have to imagine the same thing is happening with Kevin Huerter. The same thing is happening with Jordan McLaughlin. The same thing is happening with Devin Carter, right? These guys are not able to fully get into game shape, which is an absolutely very important part of training camp. But they're able to at least learn and follow and be as ready as possible, so that when they are cleared and healthy, they can, in Trey Lyles' case, with how important we expect him to be with the Kings rotation, he can hit the ground running. So that was one of the few things that we noticed. But really the main thing that I want to talk about are the 3 changes that is coming to how the Sacramento Kings want to play this year. And one of those changes I talked about a little bit on the most recent episode of Locked On Kings last week. It's the new emphasis for the Sacramento Kings on offensive rebounding. So just to recap, the Kings are now trying to crash the offensive glass hard consistently. Mike Brown wants, depending upon where you are in what are called crash zones. Now, it was not laid out for us where these zones are, but essentially, if players fall into a crash zone, they're expected to crash the offensive glass and try and get an offensive rebound off of a Sacramento Kings miss and force their opponent to box them out or stay back to try and secure a defensive rebound. Those players who are not in those crash zones, their responsibility is to get back on defense and prevent a wide open transition bucket for their opponent. The Kings' belief is that offensive rebounds can generate 2 or 3 or 4 more opportunities to score a game. And if the Sacramento Kings were to convert on a majority of those opportunities, that would immediately vault them right back up in terms of points per game and offensive rating to one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NBA. And they also feel that by crashing the offensive glass and forcing your opponents to stay back and to box out, or to even, maybe you don't even secure the rebound. Maybe you just tip the ball, right? Or you just cause a little bit of havoc. Don't let it be so easy for a big man or an opposing player to just easily catch the ball and go. You therefore slow down the other team's transition offense and have a better chance of getting back and not giving up easy buckets. So offensive rebounding is going to be a big emphasis for the Sacramento Kings as a team. And we got the opportunity to speak with Mike Brown, Domantas Sabonis, and Keegan Murray all about this new offensive rebounding focus. Let's hear from Mike Brown, who's going to go into detail here about what even going for the offensive rebound does, in addition to some of the offensive rebounding drills that the Kings implemented in practice today.
With that offensive rebound, you've been emphasizing, obviously, grabbing the board itself has its value, but what value do you see in just going in there and kind of being able to tip the ball around?
It gives us a chance. Not only that, it slows their breakdown. So if you go and get your hand on it, now everybody on their team's probably coming back to try to come up with it, and now they're not getting out in transition. And who knows what can happen if you get your hand on it. We come up with it, you can hit it, and it can go off somebody's leg, and now it's our ball out of bounds. There are a lot of good things. And then on top of that, I tell our guys, it's just like running. If you do something every single time, it's like, think back when you go play pickup, and there's always that one dude in the gym that's just right up in your face the whole time. For sure, you want to just be like, get off me, You want to just, or you're just going to be like, you know what, I don't even have time for this. It ain't that serious. So you go kind of quit without really quitting. So, you can take somebody's heart, or you can impose your will on somebody just by being consistent, doing it every single time. And crashing is one of them, just like running the floor. I tell a guy, if you run and get to the corners, that floor is going to just do like that. And when the floor does that, because you got to be guarded, you got a guy like Fox coming down, and who going to stop him in transition after a make or a miss if we're in our spots and he's got all that space to be able to attack. So you do it every single time, or get used to doing it every single time, which is hard again. I'm not saying it's easy. And pretty soon you're going to be imposing your will on people, and they're going to quit just because you're imposing your will to do the small things.
Mike, if I remember correctly, I think the bell over there was rung after drawing charges. Is there anything specific that you guys are doing for crashing the offensive glass or anything like that to encourage that?
Well, so today when we played, we gave +2 points to a team that got an offensive rebound. So if I'm on defense, that meant I'm going to box you out, because I'm not going to let you get the offensive rebound, because then we lose 2 points on the board. Mm-hmm. I think our black team won a drill because within that drill, they had like 5 offensive rebounds. I don't think they made a bucket, but they got 5 offensive rebounds, and we want to show our guys that, hey, if you win the possession game, you're going to give yourself a chance to win while getting stops. Now, you can't think you're going to get 20 offensive rebounds and no stops and think you're going to win. But if you get stops like you're capable of, and you offense a rebound, you come up with the loose balls, you come up with all those types of things, you're going to give yourself, make free throws, get to the free throw line, limit them from getting there, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. And that was proven today with the black team in this particular drill. I don't even think they made a bucket, but winning the drill because they came up with 4 or 5 offensive rebounds throughout the course of the drill.
Is Luke having to hold at least one guy back to make sure not all 5 crash, or is Luke allowing all 5 to crash?
No, so we have crash zones. We have our crash zone out on the floor. We talked about that. I'm not going to talk about it on camera, but we talked about that. I don't know if you were here, of where the crash zones is, and if you're in that area, you gotta go. You gotta go, and we'll figure out the transition afterwards, because we actually think it helps us in transition defense.
So there's kind of an overarching theme that I'm sensing to the offensive rebounding, the playing with physicality on defense, the running in transition. It's wearing down your opponent. And Mike Brown touched on that a little bit at the beginning of that clip, right? If you attack the glass, possession after possession after possession and force your opponent to box you out time and time and time again and have to constantly worry about where you are on the floor to make sure you don't get that rebound instead of just simply grabbing the ball and get back on offense, which is more fun to play anyway. If they have to worry about this time and time and time again, plus when they're on offense, they have to deal with your physicality to where you're going to bump them, you're going to cut them off, you're going to do all those little naggy, annoying physical things that just wear a team down. The Kings feel that that's an advantage that they can have this season. They can almost annoy their opponents with how aggressive they are in certain areas. I love the idea. I absolutely love the idea. And I love this idea early season, right? When teams are just trying to kind of ease their way into the league and figure things out, right? If the Sacramento Kings could come out and establish this kind of physical presence and offensive rebounding and running in transition and physical defense and blah, blah, blah. If they can do all of this early to a team that's just like, chill out, man. I'm just trying to get started. I'm just trying to get going. I'm trying to get my legs underneath me. That's an area where the Sacramento Kings can maybe pick up 2 or 3 more wins in the early going and really establish themselves and get themselves going. Domantas Sabonis and Keegan Murray also both spoke on the offensive rebounding. Domas has led the league in rebounding over the last 2 seasons. So I asked him about how this changes things for him at all with the wings and guards expected to help him crash the glass offensively.
Mike shared with us a new emphasis this year on offensive rebounding. Obviously, you're already down there trying to fight for those boards, but having the wings and the guards helping you out with that, how valuable do you think that is for this group?
It's going to be big. You know, all the numbers the last couple of years are the points are through the roof per possession when you get an offensive rebound. So coaches are really focusing on that.
Do the guards crash and do essentially the same thing that you're supposed to do? Is it simple as just have a nose for the ball?
There's different rules for people above the break. You know, we added another crasher last year towards the end of the season, and our defensive transition defense was still number 1. So coaches want us to do it now from the jump from the jump.
Keegan Murray has been asked over the last couple of seasons to improve as a rebounder, and now with this emphasis on offensive rebounding, I'm sure he's going to be one of those guys expected to help crash the glass a lot. Keegan seems to be enjoying that.
Sometimes I just try and go with reckless abandon and just see what happens. But it's a big point of emphasis just to get extra shots, extra possessions, things like that. Because when you do that, it can make the other team kind of feel that and things like that. So it's a big momentum thing for us.
A lot is made is who's playing with the first unit, who's playing with the second unit. But how interchangeable is this group and the different lineups that you feel Mike can throw out there to play the same way? Yeah, I feel like 1 through 4 is pretty even. You can play anywhere on the court, so it's really just a defensive thing when you get to those positions. So it's a really interchangeable offense besides the 5.
We have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, and 2 major changes or 2 things being asked of them this year and 2 things they're trying to implement themselves this year, which will change how the Sacramento Kings play. That's all still coming for you after I tell you about a great sponsor here of the Locked On Kings podcast. I'm talking about BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a place that encourages you to take care of yourself completely. And what I mean by that is we think about going to the gym to take care of ourselves physically, eating right to take care of our body, right? Mental health is such an important part of who we are, and taking care of ourselves mentally is really, really important. Halloween lets us have a lot of fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies or ghosts or Frankenstein or anything like that? Those things can weigh us down, right? And we all have those fears that linger with us. Well, therapy is a great tool for helping you face those fears and, more importantly, not just finding ways to overcome them, but finding ways to cope with them as they reappear throughout your life. I've been going and seeing a therapist steadily since early on in COVID, and it's completely changed my life, how I approach things, how I handle the daily struggles of life, things that weigh upon me. And the one thing I encourage everybody is this: your problems are not too big or too small for therapy. We all need to talk to someone. We all need to get things off of our chest and help carrying the baggage that life just naturally throws at us. So give BetterHelp a try. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. You'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. You just heard from Keegan Murray there talking about offensive rebounding. Let's talk about an area that Keegan shared with us today that he's been actively working on and trying to improve. It's his playmaking.
I feel like that just comes with being in the league a little more. Your aggression comes out a little more, seeing the floor as well, knowing where guys are going to be. So just in year 3, I feel like the game's kind of slowing down a little bit. And I'm able to, because I haven't really been passing kind of person, I guess, off the dribble. So that's kind of another element that I want to see flourish in the NBA.
Is it something that you learned, playing with Team Select, or just something you just picked up?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes with learning the game, just being around guys that you played with for, 2 years now. So it's just a feel thing.
This is another layer to Keegan's development that we don't really talk about too much, because the major area with Keegan putting the ball on the basketball, putting the ball on the floor and dribbling is, hey, how can you create your own shot, right? How can you find a way to become an isolation scorer, put the ball on the ground and attack the basket, or get to a mid-range jumper, or be able just to score and create for your team at any point in time. But the other element of that too is once you start adding that part of your game and defenses start respecting that and sending doubles and trying to cut you off and things like that, you need to be able to, 1, make the right read and make the right decision, and 2, pass out of danger and pass out of double teams and make sure that you react to how the defense reacts to you. Hearing that Keegan wants to and is emphasizing improving his ability as a playmaker, not like he's going to be a point guard and he's going to suddenly start averaging 5+ assists per game or anything like that, but being able to make the right play. And one of the things that he said there that I think is really important, and this is something common that you hear from guys in year 3 or 4 of their careers, the game starts to slow down for them, right? Keegan no longer feels like he has to rush or suddenly make a decision, even if Mike Brown's offense is, hey, 0.5, make a decision in 0.5 seconds. Shoot, drive, pass, whatever, but make a decision in 0.5 seconds. That 0.5 seconds feels a whole hell of a lot faster to a rookie or second-year player than it does a veteran and someone that knows all of the opportunity and instinctually can react to what is in front of them. So hearing Keegan recognize this, he brought this up on his own. We didn't start asking him, hey, are you working on your passing? Hey, are you working on your playmaking? He brought this up on his own, like, this is an area of my game that I want to work on and I'll be emphasizing this year. And again, I'm not expecting Keegan to suddenly become a great playmaker for the Sacramento Kings. The Kings have a lot of great passers already on this roster. Keegan doesn't need to be that. But for Keegan, if he's going to continue to grow as someone who can create for himself, he also needs to be able to work his way out of that, find the open man, move the basketball correctly, because the Kings are going to be generating some open shots and maybe they'll have to swing the ball around or whatever the case is. They're going to have to find the right guy and make the right pass, and that includes Keegan. And Keegan's even emphasizing, I don't want to just pass out of a catch and shoot. I want to be able to put the ball on the ground, attack the basket, try and get to a mid-range spot. If nothing's there, make the right read, make the right pass, find the open man, and hopefully get an assist or 2 that way. So hearing Keegan talk about that is pretty cool. I have one more clip for you from Keegan Murray. This doesn't have anything to do with the changes or what he's trying to change or add to his game this year, but I think it's important to mention and to talk about. You know how much I rolled my eyes or stuck my nose up at this concept of DeMar DeRozan joining the Sacramento Kings hurts Keegan in any kind of way. It takes the basketball out of his hands. It's going to slow his development or anything like that. Well, I've already played some clips for you from DeMar and different members of the Kings about shutting that down, but Keegan shuts that down too.
I feel like it's almost everyone eats kind of offense. So I feel like my role is not changing and things like that. So it's been I feel like a smooth transition so far, and no one's asked me to lay off the gas or anything like that. So just continue to be aggressive.
Do you find yourself at all like floating to different areas of the court, or how does, I guess, DeMar's presence, he's obviously high usage guy, kind of change maybe how it flows?
Yeah, I mean we're flowing the same, moving around, a lot of ball movement, player movement, things like that. But when you need a bucket, I feel like he's the guy to kind of go to. So I feel like he's gonna have success in this offense. I feel like everyone who's in the offense gonna have success.
So it turns out that adding a multi-time All-Star to your roster does not outwardly and immediately hurt the development of young players. Keegan is saying there's plenty of mouths to feed, yes, but everybody can eat in this offense. He's not being asked to change the way he's playing by any means. He's not having his shots or his opportunities taken away from him by DeMar. He touched on it there. DeMar adds another guy that can go and get this team a bucket when they need to. And of course, that's something that Keegan would like to develop and add to his own game. And now he has, again, a multi-time All-Star, a future Hall of Famer in my mind, who's an expert at that, to help teach him and develop him in that way too. So can we please finally put this nonsense of Keegan Murray being hurt by DeMar DeRozan's presence to bed? It's silly. Domantas Sabonis, he's figuring out how to play with DeMar DeRozan too. Before we get into the area of change to his game, he talked about playing with DeMar, how easy it is, but also he has to figure out as a ball screener when to set a screen for DeMar and when to get the hell out of the way and let DeMar work in isolation.
DeMar talked about how he thinks your DHO game with him is unstoppable. Do you feel that?
Yeah, but mainly because of him. I don't have to do much with him. Anyone can do my job with him. It's pretty easy.
I think with your screening being a big part of your game, you mentioned before, like learning with DeMar when to versus when he just needs to ISO. Like, what's the adjustment of learning the best way to set him up with screens?
Every practice, even today, I'm learning different things, on how to set him up, what areas of the court he likes more, so maybe on one area of the court, I did this with him, but I know now at this part, he doesn't like that, he wants this. So the more we play, the more I'm getting to know him more.
Is there an aspect of setting that DHO a little lower for him to get that midi?
Yeah, of course, but at the same time, it depends where it is. If he's flying off and the defense is flying off him, maybe go a bit higher, so now he has lane to go downhill. So it's all about reads, and the more reps we get, it's going to get easier.
I am going to share with you what Domantas Sabonis is changing or adding to his game this year, and I think it will surprise a lot of you and excite a lot of you here in just a second after I tell you more about our title sponsor here of the Locked On Kings podcast. Talked about them before. Happy to do it again. We're talking about FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's like you're in one of those sports gambling rooms or sports betting rooms or betting areas in like a casino in Las Vegas. It's all right there in front of you. So when you're watching a game and you have a feel for how the game's going to go or how a certain player is going to perform or whatever, you can use that intuition right there in front of you with all the information you need to place the best bets and make yourself money. And right now, when you get started, you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. $5. That's it. Put $5 on anything. It could be any one of the games coming up this upcoming Sunday in the NFL. You could put a $5 future bet on something related to the Sacramento Kings or the NBA. You could bet on, can you bet on preseason games? You could bet on the preseason game on Wednesday if you could. And right there, you get $200 in bonus bets for you to really play and make some money on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So what is Domantas Sabonis changing or adding to his game this year? It's not he's adding the three-point shot because we already know he can shoot the three. It's shooting the three more.
Mike mentioned the other day that you guys had talked a little bit about three-point shooting, and he's okay with you maybe even encouraging you to maybe get up to like 3, 4, 5 attempts a game. Yeah. Is that what are your thoughts on that?
That's definitely true. But yeah, I'm trying to find moments in the game where I can do that, without also trying to find a balance with my playmaking. So as the preseason games go on, that's where I can start to try and test those waters.
You've been pretty efficient, like out there when you do shoot them. Does that give you confidence to maybe increase that number a little bit?
Yeah, of course. In the past when like you said, when I have shoot them, it's a decent clip, so I just got to shoot them more with confidence.
How do you find the balance? Because you're a naturally unselfish player, and it just seems to be counter to who you are.
It's tough because sometimes when I do pass up a shot, it will lead to another play for someone else or an easy bucket. You know what I mean? So it's I just have to find the rhythm.
I love this. Let it fly, Domas, because he's not that bad of a three-point shooter, and it's not like the Kings are suddenly asking him to explode with a high volume. They're asking him to take around 3 3-pointers a game when he was just barely averaging 1 or slightly over 1 a game last season, and he shot a pretty efficient clip. So we know he's capable of hitting that shot. But the thing is about Domas that we have to pay attention with this is Domas's first instinct, and I know it drives some people crazy considering he's a $40 million per year player now. Domas's first instinct is to try and make the right pass or find the open man or find his teammate and set his teammate up. He looks for others before he looks for himself. That doesn't mean he's passive. It just, that's his skill set is feeding and getting his teammates involved. So Domas already only takes, like we said, around a 3-pointer per game. And a lot of those are when he's so wide open and the defense is kind of sagging off of him or it's in transition or whatever it is. And he takes that shot. And typically he won't take, I don't think I've seen him take more than 2 threes in a game. Domas is going to have to figure it out within himself when to give himself the green light to take that shot and when it is still the right play to look to find another teammate and continue moving the basketball. That's like, as much as the Kings can encourage him to take more threes, he's the one who has to find it within himself to take those shots and tell himself this is the right shot to take. And ultimately, you want Domas to still follow his instincts, right? He's such an incredible passer, such an incredible teammate. You want him to continue to look for the best shot and recognize when his shot is not that best shot. So what I hope doesn't happen here, and I don't think this will happen knowing who Sabonis is and what the Kings are asking of him. What you don't want to happen is you don't want Domas to all of a sudden just every time he touches the ball on the perimeter with a little bit of space, he chucks it now. And his first instinct now is, I got to put this ball up. That's not his responsibility still. That's how Kevin Huerter should feel or Keegan Murray should feel in catch and shoot situations. Domas is an unbelievably smart basketball player. So he will know when it's the right play and when it isn't. I think what needs to happen more or like mostly is he just needs to trust that even if he could get his team another look, it's likely not going to be better than the 3-point opportunity that he has right in front of him. So it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe we see it in preseason. Maybe we have to wait till the regular season. Whatever it is, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly Sabonis shoots that higher volume of threes, what kind of shots he's looking for, and how he balances taking that shot versus doing what he's normally done, which is putting the ball on the floor and looking for a DHO or looking to find the open teammate with a good pass. So that'll be fun to follow. But if Domas can shoot at a fairly efficient clip, 37% from 3 on 2 to 3 threes a game, that'll help him. That'll, of course, help the Sacramento Kings with their spacing. The Kings are going to have a lot of spacing in their offense. They need it. With so many weapons like Fox and DeRozan and how dangerous they are putting the ball on the floor, the Kings need to have space and spread out the defense as much as possible. For Domantas Sabonis to knock down threes at a higher clip and to show no fear when defenses sag off of him a little bit, I think that's going to be a big deal, not just for Domas, but for the Kings as a whole. A couple more clips for you from Mike Brown before we wrap up. All these things that the Kings are implementing, especially the offensive rebounding and stuff, that's great to implement in practice, right? And you have these theories of how you want to play coming into the season. But what happens if you get into the preseason and it isn't working, right? Let's say, I'm obviously not rooting for this to happen, but let's say the Kings really tries to emphasize offensive rebounding against the Golden State Warriors on Wednesday. And let's say they just get torched in transition, right? The Warriors score 30-plus fast break points, and it just does not work for Sacramento. I asked Mike, hey, when do you scrap things outright? When do you tinker? And when do you just stubbornly stick with things? And Mike kind of give us an idea on sticking with the new things that you're trying to implement and not giving up on them too soon.
You make adjustments, but it's throughout the course of the year. Like you don't want to give up on anything too early because the guys are still feeling their way through what we're trying to teach them. And so some of it may look bad because we're not necessarily running hard enough or we're thinking a little too much. It's like, should I go this way or that way? Oh, shoot, I should go this way, and that's too late, and it messes with the flow of the offense. And same defensively. Am I in the best shift position? Should I shift a little more? Okay, my guy's already cut back door, and now that starts a domino effect. So, you have to have some patience with the group and individuals as the preseason goes along, and that's what I'm saying. That's what my whole thing about climbing together. You know, you're doing it together. Some guys can climb a little faster than others, but you got to remember we're all roped in together. We're a team, so we can't take off and leave the group. We can stay together, and then there are going to be times when we take a couple of steps backwards. And if we take too many steps backwards, then it's time to sit back and reevaluate, okay, why aren't we getting this done? Do we need to change the technique here? Do we need to scrap it all together? I don't know, but it's a little bit of a process.
Finally, like we talked about last week during training camp, there's a pretty big battle in camp for the final couple of roster spots. And Mike shared the different guys have impressed him in different ways, but he really lays out what he and his coaching staff are looking for from players to earn those final couple of roster spots.
You know, I mean, there's a lot. You know, you're looking for fit and what do we need, and you know, can this player grow? You know, whatever, and so. You know, if you're trying to get if you're trying to get down to the nitty gritty, you know, you want guys that do the small things. You know, we're a team that likes the offensive rebound, so if somebody's in that crash position, are they going to give the effort to crash every time and get a hand on the ball? You know, that is a unique skill set that not many guys can do. A lot of guys can do it 50% of the times. Most guys can do it 75% of the time. Not many people could crash 100% of the time, putting that pressure on the defense and trying to get your hand on the ball. So that's a skill set that we're looking for. We're looking for guys that every possession, again, everybody says they want to run, but it's hard to run for 48 minutes, trust me, and play defense the way we want to play defense. So we're looking for guys that will run the floor extremely hard every single possession to put pressure on the defense and to open up that floor for a guy like Fox, who's the fastest in the league. You know, we're looking for guys that are going to hit somebody on the defense end of the floor, but do it without sending them to the free throw line. So having that physicality, having that presence, being able to communicate all the time at a high level. So those small things are the details are some of the details that we're talking about, trying to excel in and focus on right now with our guys, because if we need a bucket, we got guys that can go get a bucket now, and we can be ready to catch and shoot. You know, off of those guys. I don't need anybody to go out there and do too much. Off with the movement we have in our offense, with the passing, with the willing passers we have within our offense. All that stuff's going, in my opinion, in time, be great. But those little details that are hard to do on every single possession to alleviate some of the pressures off of Tomas and Fox and DeMar, those things are what we're looking for in guys that can help make them special, which at the end of the day may make us special.
As much as I'm looking forward to seeing the Kings starters in action and DeMar DeRozan in action with the Sacramento Kings for the first time on Wednesday, I'm also looking forward to seeing some of these end-of-the-bench guys and how they perform, the opportunities that they get, and how they can boost their chances to get one of those final couple of roster spots that the Sacramento Kings currently have available. Speaking of which, Mike Brown also shared with us, I didn't play it for you, but the plan is to have everybody who's healthy play. Everybody who is healthy is going to play on Wednesday as a reward for how hard they've been working in camp. So we will get a look at everybody who's able to go. So that means, of course, we are going to see DeMar and the starters for a little bit, which is exciting. Before that, though, we have one more day of Kings practice. I will be inside the Kings practice facility tomorrow to follow that. And I'm going to be joined by a good buddy of mine from Sacktown Sports 1140, Brendan Nunez. He is going to be joining me. He'll join me on the pod tomorrow. We'll talk about practice tomorrow. We'll talk about the approach to Wednesday's game against the Golden State Warriors. And we'll also talk about Mike Brown's rotations and how deep we expect his rotations to go once the Kings get into the actual nit and gritty of the regular season, and with the high expectation and desire and demand really to win games right away. So Brendan and I will discuss all that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Kings. We hope to see you there. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.